You've seen the video, you've seen all the accomplishments, but it's even more important to be here with the people who made it happen. And even though there may be only 200 people in this room, but there are thousands and lakhs who are watching through social media, which has never happened before. So for me, it's really in the middle of all of you, whether you're in the room or outside, through social media, to really celebrate what you guys have done in the last 20 years. So a big round of applause. Now certainly all this would have never been possible without your leadership. And the fact that your motivation, your inspiration that you've shown to all of us. Because without your leadership, without the contribution that you've made, and your downline and the upline, nothing would have been possible. So you've seen all the great numbers of Anshu and his team, because what that team has achieved in the last couple of years is something to be very proud of, because you need that leadership, you need that clarity of thinking, you need that vision, but more importantly, you need that passion, which he and his team share with all of you. So again, congratulations. So, well, I do travel a lot, and I do meet a lot of people, and there are many forums that you're a part with. So it was very recently somebody asked me, can you describe to me in one word? Now that makes it really difficult. In one word, what do you think of India? And believe it or not, I didn't really have to think too much. It came out spontaneously. And the word that I used, the adjective, was energy. And the thing is that when you travel around or when you see about India, there is a lot of energy. And a large chunk of the energy certainly comes in from different colors, different cuisines, different languages, different religions. But I think there is one single determinant of that high level of the energy. And to me, that's got to do with the youth. Because young people have energy. And when I come back to India 4 or 5 times a year, I see that the level of energy which exists today is significantly higher than when I left the country in 1999. Because you can see that in the eyes, in the body language of the younger generation. So I'm thrilled when I saw today on stage, which Anshu had told me a few weeks ago, of the formation of the Young Advisory Council, Young Leadership Advisory Council. Because I think those people can do wonders. Because yes, while it's nice to have a great past, and I think the great past gives you a good foundation. But then to build on that foundation and hopefully leapfrog that, you need something else. And that I can see that in the youth of this country. So when you hear things like 2/3 of the population is below 35, nearly half the population is below 25, to me that is one of the biggest assets of this country. And that will help all of you in building your business. Second is, as I travel around the world, I find that people out here are far more knowledgeable. They are far more aware about what's happening globally. So those are the days gone when people said India was really insular. India was only into its own self. But today, whether it's because of the news forum, it's because of international travel or international friends, or again I go back to the youth, because the youth are very curious. They have a lot of curiosity. They would like to know in terms of what's going on. So I think on a number of fronts, you have a really bright future to look forward to. I'll come back to that towards the end of my presentation, but I wanted to begin on a very positive note to say that well done. And I can see from here that you have a phenomenal future ahead of you. So what I'd like to do in the next 10-15 minutes is basically talk about three things. I have a few slides only, they're not too many, but I would like to use more words because to me it's more important for me to talk to you and to let you know what I really feel. So while slides are important, but to me slides are more like a crutch. But what's more important is to share with you what my feelings are, what's going through my mind, and more importantly, which I'll come in the end, is about my expectations. Because you would have probably gathered by now that I'm building up to a crescendo, which is that there's a lot ahead of you, of us, and of the country in general. So three things. One is in terms of how we are doing globally. I'm sure that many of you would like to understand in terms of how is the enterprise really performing across the globe. Second is about my region, and India is a very important market, if not the most important market within that. And third is all about the future. So let's look at the enterprise performance at the end of the first 6 months of the calendar year. The good news is that our top line, which is the sales, are significantly ahead of the plan. Yes, we are still below the last year, and that's a lot got to do with basically the downturn and the softness we've seen in China in the last couple of years. But the good news is China's coming back, and a large chunk of the upside, which you're seeing in the enterprise sales versus the plan, versus the budget, is got to do with the strong China performance in the first 6 months of this calendar year. Also in Americas, we are doing good, but the challenge in Americas is that a large chunk of the business, nearly 40%, depends on the Hispanic population. And given some of the challenges they are facing with the new regulations out there, there is some softness in that segment, which is being reflected in the overall Americas region. And Asia is slightly behind because they're experiencing some softness in some of their markets, which have grown a lot in the past. But they are in a situation now which is stabilizing, which has gone down a bit, but they have strong plans to recover, starting from the new performance year, which starts in a few weeks from now in September. But the icing on the cake is really the performance of EIA. So EIA, at the end of the half year, I would say at the end of July, because we have the latest numbers, are exceeding plan and growing versus last year. And even on the platinum's outlook is looking really positive. And a large chunk of that is got to do with how you guys have really performed, because I was talking to the LAC in the morning, and I mentioned to them that at the end of July, India today is the fastest growing market affiliate in the world of Amway. And that growth is coming just not from a value growth in terms of crores or dollars, but in terms of volume growth, in terms of PV, which to me is more important, because you grow in volume, you'll automatically grow in value, and also in terms of the platinum growth. So I think there are a number of fronts on which we are seeing a really good comeback. And when I saw the slides from Anshu a few minutes ago, I'm not surprised, and nor should you be, to understand the reason for that success, because a lot has happened. I mean, at the end of the day, things don't happen by themselves. You have to plan it out, and a lot of activities have gone in, which you've seen from Anshu in the last half an hour, and certainly you being not only a strong contributor in implementing, but many of you who've been on the LAC or who've advised on the LAC into the inputs have helped design each of those plans. Because my motto, my philosophy from day one has been that whatever we do out here has to work hand in hand with our leaders. Because there's no point of launching a new product or designing a new marketing campaign or having a new pricing strategy if we don't have all of you on board. So we need to have you on board. Yes, we may have our differences. We are free to express ourselves. We will talk about it. But in the end, we need to come to a conclusion. And once we come to a conclusion, we all have to go by it and be fully aligned. And that's the way that I believe in it, because the moment you do that, your chances of success is going to be significantly higher. And I can say that I've seen that firsthand in terms of how you've tackled the crisis, whether it was in 2014, and how we managed to overcome, whether it's in terms of talking to the regulators, talking to the law enforcement. And then, as I say, proof of the pudding is in the eating. We've seen the DS guidelines coming out. Well, as Anshu shared with us, we hope to get legislation out by next year. So it's all moving. It may not be moving at the speed that we would like, but then I think that's a price you have to pay for being part of a huge democracy, which is the biggest democracy in the world, with 1.3 billion people. So you have to follow a process. But what really pleases me is that from a time when we were hardly known to now, whether you're talking to the government officials or you're talking to the consumer, you've seen the numbers on awareness and on favorability. And those kind of numbers don't exist for affiliates of Amway around the world. So again, thank you very much in terms of what you've been able to achieve, because good awareness, good favorability is a starting point of really building up a business. Because when you talk to prospects, when you talk to your family, you talk to your friends, it certainly gives a lot of confidence for them to say, okay, so this is what you guys are doing in terms of selling fabulous products, but also entrepreneurship. You saw the numbers of the country needs to create 13 million jobs a year, which is 1 million a month. But the jobs will be only 1 million a year. So there's a gap, there's a chasm, there's a yawning gap between where you want to be, so as to keep just to maintain your GDP growth of 7.5%, so as to be number one in the world. Just to keep that, you need new employment of 13 million jobs a year. It will not come from the standard jobs, which are the factories, etc., factories and service industries. And therefore, entrepreneurship or self-employment is a great way of trying to bridge that. So, just one or two words on the enterprise before I move over more specifically to the region and then to EI and certainly to India, is that as an enterprise, so at the end of June, we are exceeding our plan. We are slightly below last year, but we are exceeding a plan, and our financials are also looking strong. So that should give you the confidence in terms of company investing and reinvesting in the business. And that's what the outlook looks like. So we will exceed the plan which we have laid out to our board members, both in terms of the top line and the bottom line. And clearly China's stabilization has contributed significantly to that performance. Now let's talk about the rest of my presentation. And I wanted to borrow a phrase from President JFK, because I think it makes a lot of sense, just not for our business, but for any phase of our life. So I look at life, and those of you who are my age or close to that would say that, or will relate to the fact that you go through these three phases, but I believe in making things simple. And if I have to simplify life, I would say there are three big phases you go through once you start working. The first phase is basically that you want to prove yourself, what your skills are, what your competencies are, what your capabilities are. And with that in mind, you do things yourself. Because that is the best way of trying to demonstrate to people that you're interacting with in terms of what you are capable of doing and what your competencies are. So that is basically in doing things yourself. Then as you move up, you tend to organize things, because you can't do everything by yourself. So you become a team leader. You have a team of people working around you, right? And you start delegating. Some do it better. Some probably don't do it that better. But the ones who do it better and who learn with it, they get things done. So from doing it yourself, you move to a stage of getting things done. And I'm sure you experienced that when you were a prospect, when you were recruited into the business. You basically had to do a lot of the stuff in terms of selling, in terms of getting new prospects on board and doing a lot of the basic fundamentals. But then as you rise at the pin level, you're then managing your team and you're getting things done. But to me, the more important stage, which then truly determines a great leader from maybe a good leader, is in terms of making things happen. And there is just not a subtle difference between phase 2 and phase 3, but I think there's a huge difference. Because when you say that you will make things happen, which at times basically means that it was impossible. We were going down a drain. We were in dire strait. But given your will, your motivation, your vision, your leadership qualities, the way that you work together, you made things happen. And you see that in sports. At times when a team is losing, whether it's a T20 or it's a one-day international, and they suddenly recover and come back. So you can see that happening within a game of 3 hours or 4 hours or 5 hours. You see that in life when people are struggling, but then they recover. There are great cases whether it's in terms of your health, when you had been written off, but you had the willpower and you changed your lifestyle and you made things happen. So the point I'm trying to make is that all of you have done a fabulous job. We've seen the results. But I think in moving forward, and especially with a lot of the tailwinds behind us, whether it's in terms of demographics, in terms of psychographics, and in terms of, I think the other thing which strikes a lot for India, I've seen as compared to the rest of the world, is we tend to adopt to things very, very fast. And let me give an example. When I grew up, and I'm sure it's for most of you, we all have landlines, right? We have the phone. And to get a landline was literally getting a lottery. So it wasn't that you walk into the office, whether it's in Maharashtra, Delhi, whatever, and you can apply and get a phone. No, it wasn't that easy. There were hurdles and hurdles and hurdles. It had nothing to do with money, it was many other complicated things. And therefore when you got a landline connection, it was like, wow, that you won a jackpot. But then you had the phone line, and how many times did the phone work? Half the time that there was sound coming on, you couldn't hear things. You couldn't make a long distance call because STD wasn't really around. What did you use? Trunk call. You had to book a call. And then to book a call, you want to speak to someone, you had a PP, right? Person to person calling. And then the beauty was, which I think was amazing, was a lightning call. How many of you remember you had to book a lightning call? Now, what did a lightning call mean? When you booked a lightning call, what was the expectation? That the call will come through, right? In reality, can someone tell me what was the longest they had to wait for a lightning call? I can tell you from my experience, I booked a lightning call to Bombay, it came after 10 hours. So that was, and I'm not joking, it's serious, and that's a lightning call. So how things have changed. So today, everyone on the street can do a lightning call because you have a mobile phone. The bloody call goes through right away. And no wonder the number of landlines, even today, even though the phone came to India more than 100 years ago, is only 100 million. So 10 crore. Can you guess how many mobile phones are there in the country? It's close to 1 billion. I think it's around 800 million, 900 million. So 10 times more than the number of landlines, even though the first mobile was launched in this country, when I started using that was 1995, I think, or maybe 96. So it's been only a bit more than 20 years. So and I think it really goes to show that how we are fast in terms of adopting, and the reason that a lot of Indians have adopted to that is basically because people are using their mobile phone as a way of earning their income. I mean, we have a lot of street vendors, right? Home delivery, etc. on food. Okay, now you got Amazon, Flipkart, but the concept of home delivery has been existing in this country for a long, long time. And for them to have a mobile phone, somebody can call them and they can, deliver, is certainly much faster and much easier. So I think what the point I'm making is that we are very open to ideas, especially if we can relate to the fact that this can help me a lot in terms of what I'm doing, my business, my earning income, etc. And that is a very positive sign, because a lot of people just don't want to change. And I don't see that in India. And maybe it again goes back to where I started. It's energy, and energy really coming out from a lot of the youth. And youth are definitely far more open to new ideas where they make a lot of sense. So there are many ways in which we can, make things happen. So within my region, we've had three broad priorities. One was that we need to grow through a balanced business building. And my heart is very close to the fact about to have a sustainable business. So I heard a lot about sustainable growth, sustainable business. I also heard that from the LSE in the morning, which is music to my ears. But one is to say something, the other is to do it, right? And I strongly believe that if you have the right growth drivers, you will automatically get the results. So while it's important to focus on the results, in my mind, what's more important is to focus on the growth drivers, on what will lead you to the results. And to me, balanced business building, and by balanced business building, I mean balancing out recruitment with the ability to sell the product, whether you're selling it within your network or outside your network. If you balance the two out, your chances of having a sustainable growth and ongoing growth is going to be significantly higher. The second is, and as you would have expected, my fondness for the young and active, and I say no more in terms, because I've already said that a lot in the last few minutes, and especially the importance of young and active. Call it Generation Y, call it U35, etc., is really important for this country. And I'm glad to see that you guys are doing a phenomenal work in terms of leveraging that to the hilt. And the third is in terms of us, and I certainly take the blame for me and my team, is that we need to service you better. So there is a difference in agility versus speed. Speed means just going fast. Okay, so you know, found a faster way of doing things, which is good. But agility goes beyond that. And agility means ability to change based in terms of the challenges you're facing. And if anything, to me, agility is very relevant for this country, because there is no quiet day. Every day something new is happening. People call it chaos. People call it in terms of various other names. But the fact is that we, especially in India, you can't afford, okay, I have a certain plan and I will stick with it and I will sleep on it and it'll be fine. No. You have to keep changing around. And sports is the same, because I play a lot of sports, and you may have a plan to win, but suddenly the opposing team is changing, and you have to change. If not, you may have the most brilliant plan, but you won't be able to score a goal. Or maybe hit the winning run, because something has changed out there, and that can change because of weather. It can change because the other team just got more enthusiastic, or something else happened out there. So you need to be agile while being fast. So agility is extremely important, because that goes about all in terms of being flexible and having the ability to change with the times, and digital. So I said, I am not surprised at all that India is now amongst the top 3 markets, whether it's for Facebook, whether it's for YouTube, whether it's for Twitter, because social media, to me, has always been a part of a DNA. Except in the old days, there was no internet. Even the landlines didn't work out here, right? But the social media worked because people know each other. For example, if I have to recruit someone within my company, normally, that you go through references and all that stuff. And I normally say, hey, I can ring up a few friends in different industries and they are bound to tell me what this person is really all about, because everyone is wired, everyone is connected. And I may have said the joke in the past, but you've already, I'm sure that you heard about 6 degrees of separation, right? So they say in the world, there are 6 degrees of separation where people can find out in terms of where they're connected. I say for India, it's probably 2, because if you put 2 Indians in a room, one may be living in Sydney, Australia, one could be living in Cincinnati, Ohio in the US, put them in a room for half an hour, and they'll find out either through their connection with their brother, sister, brother-in-law, father-in-law, this friend, high school friend, somewhere or the other, they have something in common. If they don't, ask them to spend another half an hour and they're bound to find something, So the fact is that we are connected, and that goes very well for the direct selling world, because what is the direct selling industry? It's all about relationships. It's all about connections. And therefore, social media comes very naturally to most Indians, because everyone seems to know each other or find out about each other. They're curious. And it's a people's business. I remember when I first went to the US to live, it was in the late 80s, and somebody asked me, do you have social security benefits? Well, in India,